Welcome back to the Chronicles of Crazy. My name is Michelle, and today I want to talk about my opinion on something that happened a few months ago, but I still can't stop thinking about it. So we're going to talk about it. It's not a current event, but for me, it's still current in my mind. The Titan Submersible. Do you remember this tragedy that happened not so long ago? Oh man, we all know about the Titanic and how the Titanic, hit the iceberg and then sank, and it's now living. I don't know the facts off of the top of my head, but I'll put them here so that you could see and have accurate information. So this is the depth that the Titanic now rests in the fucking ocean. So now all these years later, we have these humans who want to go into the water so that they could explore the wreckage of Titanic. A very famous person who has explored the Titanic wreckage many, many times is James Cameron. James Cameron has ventured into the depths, to go hang out with the Titanic many, many times. But besides him and other people who have done this, there was a man, off the top of my head, I can't remember his name, but this was his name right here. This is him. And he decided to form a company called OceanGate. So this guy starts this company. The whole point of the company is to do tours down into the fucking depths of the ocean to go visit the Titanic wreckage, right? This fucking guy, he makes this company because he wants to do explorations down to the sea to visit Titanic. That's fine, right? The problem was he just didn't do the right thing. He built the Titan Submersible, right? It was built to be able to fit 5 people. They would go into this thing, and this thing would take them down to the fucking depths of where the Titanic was, and then they would, swim around it. Not swim, but the submersible would move around it, and they'd be able to see through this small ass little window, porthole. I don't know what the fuck it's called, because I'm not a fucking sea person, okay? So the fucking window was at the tip of the Titan Submersible, and they would take turns sitting in the front and looking out the little window and recording shit, whatever. James Cameron, amongst others, told this man and other people that worked at OceanGate or for OceanGate that their Titan Submersible was a tragedy waiting to happen, right? And nobody paid attention. The material that was used to make this submersible was, damn, I used to have like all the specifics right there in my brain, and I'm telling you, they're gone now. But it was made of a certain material that it shouldn't have been made out of. So it was made out of this, and it should have been made out of this. And so there was just a lot of things that were wrong with this fucking submersible. First of all, it's tiny. I'm claustrophobic. There's no amount of money that anyone could have ever paid me to make me get into this submersible and then go all the way down to the Titanic so that I could be a part of the Titanic wreckage. No fucking way. I'm so afraid of the dark. I'm so afraid of the ocean. But I love the ocean. Like, I love to go swimming in the ocean. I'm just afraid of what's in the ocean, okay? And I'm afraid of the fact that when you're deep down in the ocean, you're just surrounded by water. There's nowhere to go. You can't breathe in water. The Titan Submersible, it had been on many trips. People would pay mad bread. Like, what was it? I don't know how much it was. They would pay this amount of money, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more, depending on who the client was. According to my findings, there was a certain amount of days that you would be on this voyage. In that amount of days, you would go down or try to go down how many ever amount of times that it was that they would do these trips. So most of the time, they would never make it down to see the Titanic because something would go wrong, right? But there were times when they did make it down to see the Titanic. Because of the material that they used, the cheap ass material that they used to build this submersible, every time they went down to those depths where the Titanic was, damage was happening to the vessel. So on this day right here, these people decided to go on a voyage. So it was the man who founded OceanGate. Then there was this guy who had been down on many different visits to the Titanic already. Then there was this guy who was like a voyager or some shit, or someone who enjoyed, activities that were very high risk and dangerous. And then there were these 2 people, a wealthy man and his son. There was a lot of speculation about the son not wanting to go on this trip, but then I read some reports that he was excited about going on this trip. So some reports say that he was excited about going because he was going to chronicle it for his own social media purposes. And then there were reports that his family member, aunt, I think it was saying that he was afraid to go and was not originally supposed to go. It was supposed to be his mother. But then she decided to have the son go because it was a good Father's Day bonding experience. So the five of them end up in the Titan Submersible and they venture down to go see Titanic. And within this amount of time, they lost communication. They lost communication on this day at this time. I think it was either that night or the next day when it blew up on the news. And now everybody knows that there's this missing submersible lost in the sea near the vicinity of where the Titanic wreckage is. There's 5 people aboard and they've lost communication. When I heard this, I was in my yard and I had to take multiple deep breaths because I thought I was going to have an anxiety attack because I felt my heart beating and I was thinking about these people trapped in this submersible, knowing that they only have a certain amount of oxygen and in the dark. But it was so scary, like just the thought. So they're saying this on the news. We got to find them before such and such day at such and such time because they're going to run out of fucking oxygen. So then the next day comes and there's reports on the news that they heard banging. But it was like every half hour that they were hearing banging. So now people are like, oh my God, they're down there. They're trying to send a signal that they're down there. They have to find them. Around the time when they lost communication, there was a sound heard under the water. And that sound was the sound when something implodes under the water. This is what an implosion looks like. Like this is basically what happens when something implodes. And then after all the days are done, like let's say they said, oh, you have this amount of days before they run out of oxygen. When that amount of time was done, all of a sudden in the news, we hear that one of the cameras that they had sent down there to search found the vessel blown to bits and there was pieces of it scattered around. So they didn't say that they found the vessel. What they said was that they found debris. There was a debris field around the area where the Titanic is. And they believe this debris field to be the Titan Submersible after it imploded under the water. James Cameron did like a interview and he was saying it. He said when there were the reports of that sound, that the second he found out about the fucking sound that was heard, he knew immediately it was a wrap for the Titan Submersible and that it had in fact imploded. And I thought it was terrible, like the aftermath of it. Like so many people didn't care because the passengers were rich. There was no compassion for these people. There was no compassion for their families because how can you have compassion for their families if you're talking shit about their deceased loved ones who died doing something that they were passionate about? Was it the smartest thing to do? Probably not. And only because of the way that this submersible was built. Let's talk about the dude who did all of this. This guy right here. Fine, he was probably cheap and wanted to cut corners when it came to certain things. He probably did want to make as much money as possible because of these tours. But he was also in the vessel. Like he wouldn't just send people into this vessel on their own. He was in there with them. So I don't think for one second that this man, I don't think he thought it was that dangerous, that he himself would put himself in danger of fucking dying a terrible death down in the depths of the ocean. If he thought that that was a possibility, do you think he would have gone on these voyages? Now, it would be different if he knew how dangerous this was and he was not getting into the submersibles with the people that were paying to go on these tours. He was just letting them go on their own and he's safe, above the sea. Then he's a piece of shit who's fucked up and who's an asshole and blah, blah, blah. But he was in there with them. The other 2 guys that were down there with him, they lived for this shit. Like, they loved doing this thing. Who cares if they were rich? If these were regular people that won tickets to do this, then you would feel bad for them? Or would you still think that they were foolish to even do this? Like, oh, you're so stupid to do that. Fine. Some people feel the same way about people who bungee jump or skydive or fucking whatever the fuck. Go in hot air balloons. Go diving with fucking sharks. Like, there's people that enjoy all types of different shit and it doesn't make them stupid. It doesn't make them bad people. You know what I'm saying? Whether you're rich or not, that shouldn't be a factor that people, for people to decide whether or not they're going to have compassion because you died. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just thought that people were being so cruel to these people who lost their lives in such a terrible way. I know myself, I wouldn't have done it, but that's because, like I said earlier, I'm afraid of the water. You know, whenever I'm in like some type of high stress sea situation, I panic. I panic and I don't know what to do. It's happened several times. My little sister knows that I would never make it in a deep sea struggle. You know what I'm saying? So the thought alone terrifies me. That's why I wouldn't do it. But I don't think people should be so quick to fucking judge the next person for a decision that they made that you're not down to make. You know? It doesn't make you better or smarter. And I just thought it was sad. I thought it was sad that these people lost their lives. I hope that it was an implosion that happened and that they didn't suffer down there. And I feel bad for the father and the son. I do, because if the dad thought that his son was going to die down there, do you think he would have let his son go down there with him? Some people would go so far as to say, oh, well, you know, they were rich. They think that they can buy everything and they're invincible because they're rich. Nothing like this could ever happen to me. Some rich people are assholes, but not all rich people are assholes. You know, just because somebody has money, you don't know how they got their money. They could have worked their ass off for that money. So the one thing that I learned throughout the whole Titan Submersible tragedy is that we as a human race need to have more compassion towards one another. It's just something that's lacking in the world. Like, just empathy and compassion for your fellow human being. If I knew 1,000% that I could go down to see the Titanic and I would come back up alive with no problem, and it was 1,000% guaranteed to me, I didn't have to sign any death waiver clauses because there was no risk of me dying, I probably would still go because it is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And can you imagine being in the depths of the ocean, so quiet, so still, and seeing this? It's gotta be sad, but it's also a moment that, you know, what a moment that would be, right? It's a 50-50. I probably would. Maybe I would still be too scared to. Who knows? That's it, world. Thanks for watching. Bye.